The shimmering corridors of stellar nexus thrummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced xenotechnology. Jax Corvus, a Terran merchant with a sturdy build and close-cropped dark hair, strode confidently through the station's immaculate passageways. His crisp white tunic and obsidian tactical trousers presented a sharp contrast against the metallic backdrop of the station's interior. Security Officer Lyra of Xylos watched him approach her checkpoint through multifaceted eyes, her lavender skin seeming to emit a soft internal glow. Her shimmering silver hair cascaded down her shoulders, contrasting beautifully with her form-fitting cerulean armored uniform. As the Terran drew closer, she straightened her posture, projecting an aura of professional command. "Halt for inspection," she commanded, her melodic voice carrying a hint of steel. "Station protocols require all visitors to submit to security screening." Jax paused, offering a disarming smile. "Of course, officer. I've got nothing to hide." Lyra activated her scanner, the device emitting a soft violet glow as she began her inspection. Her eyes narrowed as she detected an anomaly. "Sir, I'm reading an unusual mass concentration in your lower torso region. Please explain." Jax shifted uncomfortably, aware of his body's natural reaction to the attractive Xylosian officer's proximity. "I can assure you, it's nothing illegal." "Nevertheless, we'll need to conduct a more thorough examination," she stated firmly. "Please follow me to the private screening room." The small chamber was clinically lit, with smooth ivory walls and a single examination plinth. Lyra sealed the door behind them, her professional demeanor masking her growing curiosity. "Remove your trousers, please," she instructed, maintaining her composure despite the intimate nature of the request. Jax complied, his cheeks flushing slightly as the truth of the situation became apparent. Lyra's own face took on a delicate rose hue. She quickly averted her eyes, struggling to maintain her professional facade. "I see," she managed, clearing her throat. "Normally, our procedures would require a complete cavity search, but I believe we can make an exception in this case." A hint of humor crept into her voice. "You appear to be adequately explained." Jax couldn't help but chuckle, breaking the tension. "Oh, I appreciate your thoroughness, officer, though I have to admit, this isn't how I typically introduce myself to beautiful women." Lyra found herself smiling despite her best efforts to remain stern. "Flattery will not excuse you from proper security protocols, Mr. Corvus." "Jax Corvus," he replied, redressing himself, "and I wouldn't dream of trying to circumvent your duties." What started as an awkward security check evolved into something unexpected as they began to talk. Lyra discovered that Jax wasn't just another cocky Terran trader. He was intelligent, witty, and surprisingly well-versed in Xylosian cultural studies. Their conversation flowed naturally, touching on everything from interstellar politics to the challenges of cross-species communication. "You know," Lyra said, checking her chronometer with reluctance, "my shift ends in 20 minutes. Perhaps you'd like to continue this discussion over a drink? The station has an excellent observation lounge." Jax's eyes lit up. "I'd like that very much, officer." "Lyra," she smiled, her bioluminescent skin pulsing softly. "Call me Lyra." The observation lounge of Stellar Nexus offered a breathtaking panoramic view of the surrounding star system. Jax and Lyra sat at a secluded table near the curved viewport, their drinks casting subtle prismatic reflections across the polished surface between them. "So Lyra," Jax began, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with interest, "what brings a Terran trader to this particular sector? We're rather off the beaten path." Jax took a sip of his Centaurian whiskey, appreciating how the lounge's ambient lighting played across Lyra's shimmering silver hair. "Actually, I've been investigating a series of mysterious cargo disappearances along the Outer Rim trading routes. Ships vanishing without a trace, no distress signals, just gone." Lyra leaned forward, her professional instincts piqued. "That's interesting. We've had similar reports come through security channels. The Council's been keeping it quiet to prevent panic, but..." She glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. 3 merchant vessels have disappeared in this sector alone over the past month." 3. Jax's eyebrows rose. "That's more than I'd heard about. Any patterns?" "All Terran-operated vessels," Lyra confirmed, her multifaceted eyes meeting his, "which is why your presence here caught my attention, even before the inspection incident." Jax couldn't help but grin at the memory, noting how Lyra's skin flickered with a subtle rose hue. "Well, officer, I'm glad my anatomy could be of service in breaking the ice. She laughed, a melodious sound that sent pleasant shivers down his spine. You Terrans and your endless capacity for turning awkward situations into opportunities. It's quite remarkable. It's one of our better qualities, he agreed, along with our adaptability and... He paused meaningfully, our appreciation for beautiful xenocultures. Lyra's skin rippled with patterns of light that Jax found utterly mesmerizing. You know, she said, tracing the rim of her glass, my species has some interesting cultural traditions regarding professional relationships evolving into personal ones. Oh. Jax leaned closer, genuinely intrigued. Do tell. Well, when a Xylotian feels an attraction to someone they've met through official duties, tradition dictates a period of mutual exploration, of minds first. Lyra clarified, though her skin betrayed her own growing attraction with subtle pulses of light. We believe true connection begins with understanding each other's thoughts, desires, and motivations. As they talked, their conversation deepened, moving from professional interest to personal philosophies. Lyra explained how her people viewed relationships as a gradual merging of energies, while Jax shared Terran perspectives on love and attraction. It's fascinating, Lyra mused, how Terrans can form such intense bonds so quickly. My people typically take months just to reach the stage where physical contact is considered appropriate, and yet here you are, having drinks with someone you met during a security inspection. Jax pointed out with a gentle smile, perhaps that's why Terrans intrigue you so much, she admitted. You make us question our assumptions, challenge our traditions. It's both terrifying and exciting. Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken possibility. Jax found himself increasingly drawn to the way Lyra's skin would pulse with different patterns depending on her emotions, something he now realized was an involuntary response to her growing attraction. You know, he said softly, I've always believed that the best discoveries happen when we're willing to step outside our comfort zones. Lyra's skin rippled with a pattern he hadn't seen before, something between anticipation and desire. Speaking of discoveries, she said, her voice taking on a more serious tone, I have access to the security logs for those missing ships. If you're really investigating these disappearances, are you suggesting we work together on this? Jax asked, intrigued by both the professional and personal implications. It would be logical, she replied, her professional demeanor slightly undermined by the way her skin pulsed when their hands accidentally brushed. You have contacts in the trading community. I have access to official channels. Together, we might actually solve this mystery. And the fact that we seem to have some chemistry is just a bonus, Jax suggested with a knowing smile. Purely coincidental, Lyra assured him, though her skin betrayed her with a flash of rose luminescence. Though I must admit, Terran directness can be quite stimulating. As the artificial night cycle of the station deepened around them, their conversation continued to flow, punctuated by increasingly frequent moments of charged eye contact and accidental touches. The mystery of the disappearing ships provided a framework for their growing connection, but both knew something deeper was developing between them. The following morning found Jax and Lyra in her private office, poring over classified reports. Her quarters, connected to the office through a discreet doorway, offered a comfortable setting for their investigation. The room's ambient lighting complemented Lyra's natural bioluminescence, creating an intimate atmosphere despite their professional focus. Look at this, Lyra said, her fingertips brushing Jax's arm as she pointed to a holoscreen. Blood samples from the last known location of the Trinity vessel show unusual modifications to Terran DNA structures. Jax leaned closer, deliberately letting his shoulder brush against hers. Modified how? The genetic sequences appear artificially enhanced, she explained, her skin pulsing with excitement, both from the discovery and their proximity. Someone's attempting to isolate and amplify specific Terran traits. Let me guess, Jax's breath tickled her ear as he spoke. Our adaptability, resilience? More than that, Lyra turned to face him, their faces inches apart. They're particularly interested in Terran reproductive capabilities. Your species' genetic flexibility is unique in the galaxy. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Lyra's skin rippled with patterns that reflected both professional fascination and personal desire. Speaking of Terran capabilities, Jax murmured, I've noticed how intrigued you are by our biological traits. Lyra's skin flushed that now familiar rose hue. Purely scientific interest, I assure you, she said, though her luminescent pattern suggested otherwise. Of course, he smiled, noting how her breath quickened when he moved closer, just like your extensive research into Terran Xyloshan compatibility. He left that particular database search visible on her secondary screen, an oversight that made her entire body pulse with embarrassment and arousal. The missing ships, she said firmly, though she didn't move away, we should focus on. The way your skin glows brighter when I'm near, Jax completed, his voice low and playful. That's an involuntary response to environmental factors, she managed, though her skin betrayed her with waves of iridescent light. Environmental factors like this. He traced a finger along her arm, watching in fascination as patterns of light followed his touch. Their professional pretense crumbled as months of cultural traditions yielded to undeniable attraction. Their first kiss was an explosion of sensations, her skin illuminating the room with pulses of pure light, his warmth igniting responses her species had thought impossible. Hours later, lying in her quarters, Lyra marveled at how Terrans could turn even the most clinical examination into something profound. I never understood why the genetic researchers were so fixated on Terran DNA, she admitted, watching patterns of contentment dance across her skin. But now. Jax propped himself up on an elbow, admiring how the afterglow made her entire body shimmer. Now you understand why they are so fascinated by Terran adaptability. She smiled, tracing patterns on his chest. You're full of surprises. Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by an urgent alert from her security console. New data about the missing ships had arrived, including disturbing details about genetic experiments being conducted on Terran crews. These patterns. Lyra frowned, studying the report. They're not just studying Terran DNA. They're trying to create hybrids. But why? Jax reviewed the data, his expression darkening. Look at the genetic markers. They're targeting reproductive compatibility, accelerated adaptation. They're trying to create a new species. A species with Terran reproductive capabilities and Xyloshan traits. Lyra realized, her skin pulsing with concern, but the genetic instability would be impossible, unless they had access to both species' natural reproductive processes, Jax finished grimly. They're not just studying the genetics, they're studying the actual process of Terran Xyloshan reproduction. Lyra's skin flickered with understanding. The missing ships, the genetic samples, they're gathering data. But they couldn't possibly know about us. Maybe not yet, Jax said, pulling her closer protectively, but we need to find these researchers before they start expanding their test subjects. Their personal and professional lives had become irrevocably intertwined. What started as a security inspection had evolved into something neither of them had expected, a connection that could help them unravel the very mysteries they were trying to solve.